Oftentimes, Christians will hear atheists, or those less well read, say things like, the God of the Old Testament wasn't good. He smote the firstborn of the Egyptians. A good God would not have done that. Well, here's a short video you can share with such people. Firstly, the firstborn of the Egyptians doesn't always mean baby or toddler. Firstborns were heirs, and this would mean that the middle-aged firstborn heir Egyptians would be the ones in power, oppressing the Israelites. You also cannot definitively rule out that there could have been Egyptian converts to the Hebrews' God. Where does it say there absolutely were none? Oh, it doesn't. If that happened, then perhaps those who converted would have been spared this. Innocent children do not suffer in the afterlife. The death of a firstborn would have been to punish the parents. But what if the Egyptian parent of the small child, after seeing all the wonders, decided to grab some of that lamb's blood for their own doorframe? After all, the God-fearing were spared. Hear me out. In Exodus chapter 7, verse 5, it says, "All Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt." So we learn that God does make it widely known to all people that he is the true God. In the same chapter, the fish of the Nile died, and the Nile itself stank so that the Egyptians could not drink the water from it. All the Egyptians had to dig about the Nile for drinking water, since they could not drink any water from the Nile. So now, all the people are not only inconvenienced by God demonstrating his power, they have to actually live their lives around it. They must put forth energy in order to survive, since God showed his might. There was no way around acknowledging that God was in control. Chapter 8, swarms of flies came, and they stayed away from the Hebrews, showing that the flies were divinely organized. The Egyptians could see how the Hebrews were spared from these things. In chapter 9, verse 15, God says, "For by now I should have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with such pestilence that you would have vanished from the earth. But this is why I have let you survive, to show you my power." God was telling them he was being merciful, displaying it for them, but reminding them that he is capable of vanishing them. God asks, "Will you continue to exalt yourself over my people?" He threatens Pharaoh, who does not take it seriously. Later on in chapter 9, we get our first glance of the entire premise of my convert argument. Those of Pharaoh's servants who feared the word of the Lord hurried their servants and their livestock off to shelter where they would not be killed by the fiery hail. The sky became dark and rained hail, except over the Hebrews. Where do you suppose the God-fearing Egyptians took cover? Soon after, there was such darkness that one could feel it, and the Egyptians could do nothing for 3 days. Also worthy to note is that the Egyptian sun god Ra was the king of the Egyptian gods, viewed as the most powerful. It's a pretty damning sign for another nation's god to express how he's more mighty than your mightiest god. In chapter 11, it says, "The Egyptians have become well disposed to the Hebrews, giving them gold and silver," and even that Moses was now highly regarded by Pharaoh's servants and the people. In chapter 12 of Exodus, while it does say that every firstborn of the Egyptians will die, so they will want to drive the Israelites out, God also gives instructions to Moses and Aaron for the native and alien to the Israeli nation. Could someone check on all this for me? I'm but a lowly philosopher. I mean, I know I look the part, but I'm not actually a theologian. So I submit to you, person who would rave that the smiting of the Egyptian firstborn is proof of God being evil, that God gave the Egyptians plenty of warning and time to fear him. And by the time the Passover took place, all you had left were foolish, stubborn Egyptians, signing their own firstborn sons' death warrants. They chose it. In conclusion, it should be noted that the nation of Egypt, more or less as a whole, accepted Pharaoh's authority, which means they, as a people, condoned the violent slaughter of the infant sons of the Israelites. And I find it rather interesting that those who would speak against the slaughter of the Egyptian firstborn still live their lives in such a way that they do not actually care about the slaughter of innocent babies at all. They, humorously, believe themselves to somehow be morally superior to God, not seeing their own connection to how they damn their own nation, much like how the Egyptians did with their compliance to even worse of the same sin. Do you choose it as well? It was the slaughter of the infant sons 80 years prior that doomed the unconverted Egyptians. And don't you forget it. This has been Veritas on the Rocks. I'm Regina Lux. Follow me for more.